Today, I'm going to be talking about how I went broke and recovered. Welcome back. So, over the last few podcasts, YouTube channel, podcasts, wherever you're listening to this or watching, I noticed that there has been more traction as I've shared my story and somehow I would say mistakenly started talking about money. And today I'm going to talk about how to recover from a financial setback. But more importantly, I'm going to share my story of what I did to recover from a financial setback. You see, because financial setbacks are more common than we think they are. A lot of times we have an image in our head of successful people. And when you ask people, name successful people, people will not, first off, they won't even point to themselves, even if they are successful. They will point to some of the millionaires that we know. They will point to Jeff Bezos. They will point to Steve Jobs. They will point to Bill Gates. They will point to Oprah. They will point to Warren Buffett. But here's the thing though, there are many successful people walking around the place like you and I, and there are many people who have financial setbacks, including all those billionaires that I mentioned. So I'm going to say that probably by the law of averages, a financial setback is not if, but when. Okay? So what happens when you go through a financial setback? Now, for me, and I'm going to share the last financial setback I had because I've had a couple maybe in my life. But the big one is what I'm going to share, which happened right after the pandemic. So, drum roll please, let's go back to the year 2020. The lockdowns had just begun. Everything was so uncertain. We didn't know whether we were going to live or die. I mean, oh my goodness, it was tough times. A lot of businesses were closing, shutting down. I saw people with $1 million businesses, lose it overnight because of what their business were based on. But in that moment, I was one of the lucky few whose business actually grew during the pandemic. I like to say the phrase that, all the things I've been screaming about for years, people were suddenly ready to listen to me. But that wasn't what it was. I think I just showed up at a time when people really needed hope and really needed change. And a lot of doctors at that time were wondering, what do I do? And I was able to, help people think through things differently, create strategies, etc. I also worked for a weight loss company, and a lot of people too were, okay, you know what, we're sitting at home. Before we were active, now we're sitting at home. We don't want to gain weight and we don't want to stress eat. So, and I think that was where I was able to come in and help people not stress eat, help people either lose weight or keep their weight down. So let's just say during the pandemic, I did very well. To the point where actually I didn't even have to do any medical work for some time, which actually helped because I had to homeschool my children and I was a caregiver for my mother. So, being able to work my business around these schedules, the children's schedule and my mom's schedule was a huge boon. So here I was during the pandemic riding, this gravy train, and it was a gravy train. And then I had this video go viral, and then all of a sudden, a lot of people knew me. I was addressing the epidemic of physician suicide. Again, that's also on my YouTube channel. You can watch. But what happened then was that now the pandemic comes, this whole, everything happens. And then this post-pandemic, which I use that in quotes. So we're talking about beginning of 2022. I was not getting the clientele that I was getting during the pandemic. All the people that had previously come to me through the weight loss program were now, we're traveling now, we're off exercising now, and all of that. And, and also, which is sort of my read on it going back, was that during the pandemic, a lot of people became coaches. So there was like a glut of coaches of different, I would say, levels of qualification, experience, and expertise. And by the time people came out of the pandemic, let's just say, I think they were probably a little bit wary about, coaching. Some people were just wary of coaching in general, and, coming with a lot of, I would say, coach hurt and what have you. So 2022, by 2022, I was struggling. I got a couple of speaking engagements, hoping to get a few clients from that and all of that. So, still going and going. At one point, what was happening was I was using my personal credit to pay off some of these business bills and things of that nature. And that did not go well. When your income suddenly drops, then, it's, paddle furiously. So here I was. It was 2022. I was putting a brave face on it, and I was just struggling. So, what did I do? Well, guess what I did? I went and got a job, of course. So the kids went back to school. It was, the school run and all of that, and starting all that again. And they went back to school. I went and got something that would enable me to run my business and, and take care of, the kids at the same time. Because now, guess what? All the school bus drivers had gone on strike. So I had to I was doing the school run. And, that was tough, doing that school run and trying to work at the same time. So, financial setbacks. How did I recover? How am I here today talking about that? I'm not still in the financial setback. Doesn't mean I don't have any needs or that I have everything I want, but I definitely will not say that I'm in a financial setback right now. So, the first thing I'm going to share is when you're going through a financial setback is get support, and get support early. This was where I failed. I did not get support on time. I was trying different things, but even those different things I was trying were from a place of fear and, oh my goodness, this is scary. I don't know what to do, etc., etc. So even though I was trying new things, it took me a long time to get support I needed to get out of that setback. In fact, it took me till early of 2023. By this time, I was waking up with panic attacks. Look, I'm a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, but the concept of waking up, having woken up with a panic attack was quite foreign to me. I had a panic attack in my life maybe once, but not like that. So get support. One thing that I hadn't done was I hadn't completely disclosed to my husband how bad things were on my end, because I was still doing my best to take care of responsibilities, trying to generate those clients and all of that. But the using of my personal credit to pay off business bills had definitely made my credit score nosedive. So I think one day I went to him and I think I said, I don't know, I got up one morning. I said to him, I have a panic attack overnight. He said, what? Like, why? Like, what's going on? And then I think I said to him, I don't know whether I said to him, I think I said I'm drowning or something like that. And then he's like, okay, sit down. What's going on? And then, out came the tale of woe and this and that, and things aren't going as well as I thought they would. And yeah, And he was like, well, okay, sit down. Let's talk about it. What do we do? Right? So we went on and we did what we needed to do. One of the things which we did was like a consolidation program, and kind of went through that. And I realized that, thinking back, I was like, I should have just told him this the first time I didn't get a client that could meet my business bills. I should have just said that the very first time. I should have said, look, something is going on here, right? So one thing I learned was to get support on time. Now, the question you realize, like, you heard my last video, I talked about my husband and, how very, how he's very sensible, he's very thoughtful, he's very financially responsible, etc. It's like, why didn't you tell him before? Now, that brings me to point number 2. which is get rid of shame. Oh my goodness, shame is the most useless emotion, right? And a lot of times, the reason why we don't get support is because of shame. We're like, but he's your husband. Yeah, I know, right? Silly. But sometimes we build up things in our mind to the point where we feel so bad. We think people are going to be looking at us funny. We feel bad ourselves. We beat ourselves up, and then we hide. Shame makes people hide. So we're ashamed, so we don't get support on time. And that was what happened to me. I did not get support on time because I was ashamed. I was like, look, until very much lately, I'm very, very good at beating myself up. Like, ooh, expert. Things that I wouldn't hold someone else's feet to the fire for, I do it to myself. I haul myself over the coals. Let me say I have a tendency to do that. Over the last year, especially, I've really changed, and I don't do that to myself so much. But my inner voice, even though, again, hey, I tell people all the time not to do this and all that, but in my own quiet moments, if I go and sit down and write, my inner voice wasn't as gentle as she should be. So here, I'm here to tell you this. Just get rid of shame. Learn, go to therapy, do what you need to do, because shame is a useless emotion. It doesn't help. And a lot of times the judgment, we think other people are judging us. It's us. We are the one doing the judgment ourselves. We're oftentimes our own most harsh critic. So shame has no place, especially if you want to get over a financial setback, because the longer you are ashamed, the more you hide, the more you don't get support. So get rid of shame. Now, number 3, be ready to do whatever it takes. You know what I did? Towards the end of 2022, I was like, look, kids, let's this whole school run thing, let's divvy it up. So you guys can take the bus home. The bus runs in front of the school. I'll take you to school in the morning and all of that. And then, you can come get the bus home. And then I started working. Nights. Now, here's the thing. The reason why I said be ready to do whatever it takes. After I left residency, I told myself I would never work nights and I would never work in a hospital. Do you know what I did? I worked nights in a hospital. Was it a hospital or a prison? One of the two. Well, the patients had beds and they didn't leave to go home. So a hospital. So I worked in a hospital. I knew it wasn't going to be forever. I just knew I needed to go through this while I was going through the debt consolidation, etc. I started working there, and I quite enjoyed it. It was actually a fun time because I got to learn so much too. So here's the thing, be ready to do whatever it takes. I had a friend who was a doctor who went through an extreme financial setback and other life upheaval. She was driving Uber for a bit, but she's back doing what she normally does today, and she's not driving Uber anymore. But you just have to do what it takes. If you have to drive Uber. If you have to, whatever your hand finds to do to make honest money, go do it. Note that I said honest money. We do not support illegal, immoral, or unethical things here. Now, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to pivot because my next point talks about your inner work. Now, watch my video or listen to my podcast where I was talking with Dr. Otito Okpor on post-traumatic growth. Here's the thing. You have to do your inner work, because what happens is that our brains are funny. Our brains are always, I would say, trained to scan for threats, like, oh, what's going to kill you, right? And when you go through a financial setback, it's a very threatening situation. Like, oh, will I lose my house? Will I lose my car? Will I be able to eat, etc. Depending on the extent of the setback, you have to be able to train yourself back to a place where instead of your brain scanning for threat, it's scanning for opportunities. Because it's opportunities that's going to take you to that next level where you're not, hopefully, going to have any more financial setbacks. So, do your inner work. Get therapy, get a coach. And if you're in a coaching program already and you're having setbacks, this is not the time to pull away from the program. I was in a mastermind. Guess what? Because of shame, I pulled away. I did not, instead of me to, reach out to the people in the mastermind or the coach would reach out to me and say, hey, you haven't booked your call. I'd be like, yeah, I was busy. But I was going through this and I wasn't telling anybody, because the last few calls that I was on, everybody was like, rah, 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 I'm making 50K a month, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I can't even find one client. So I was ashamed, and that shame made me hide. So if you're in a mastermind, talk to the people in the mastermind. Let them help you figure it out. That's part of getting support. Support is not only financial. I got support from my husband. He talked to me, he calmed me down. He helped me find the consolidation people, and all of that. And then he gave me suggestions, how to work things going forward and all of that. But the thing is, you need support. You need some kind of support, okay? I know I went back to point number 1. So part of doing your inner work is point number 4. Get therapy if you have to, so you can grow through this, so that it doesn't become like what word am I looking for? So that it doesn't become fixed in your mind to the point where you feel you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder for the next financial setback. Because if you start looking for something, you look hard enough, it's gonna come at you, and then you won't be able to find opportunity. So do your inner work. Now, number 5, and I give this piece its own number: breath work. Like, oh, here we go with the woo-woo stuff. Just a minute, it's not woo-woo stuff. 2 things you can do while you're in this situation and your mind is all over the place and you're worrying. At night, before you go to bed, write down 3 things you are grateful for that day. 1. The second thing, when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do before you touch your phone, because people, the alarm goes off, you touch your phone, then you start scrolling. No, because when you start with your phone, your brain is already reactive. No, in those moments, there's something I call 4-6 breathing. I did not develop it. I learned it from somewhere. You inhale for a count of 4, you exhale for a count of 6, and you do that for 20 breaths. And then get up and go about your day. Now, let me tell you what that does. First of all, the gratitude list forces your brain to scan for things that are going well in your life. There's something in our brain called the reticular activating system, right? And have you noticed how when you buy, if you buy a gray Nissan Rogue, all of a sudden it looks like everybody has a gray Nissan Rogue? Why? Because your brain, because you have one now, your reticular activating system is now just primed to see those. Whereas you probably never even noticed a Nissan Rogue in your life. Point. When you look for, when you have a gratitude practice, it helps your brain continuously scan for things to be grateful for. And guess what that does? That's part of how your brain starts to scan for opportunities. That's how you're able to reassure yourself that I can get through this. Gratitude does so much. When they say gratitude rewires your brain, that's what it does. It causes your brain to start to look for things to be grateful for, because where your attention goes, your energy flows. Now, the second piece is the breath work. The breath work that I described helps you not to be so reactive and feel so panicky and so jumpy. Because here's the thing, when you are panicky, frantic, and jumpy, you don't see clearly, you don't think clearly. I tell people this all the time. I don't do frantic energy. Like sometimes you come in as a doctor, people are rushing around and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, it's an emergency, rush around. But you don't have to rush around if somebody came in for a regular physical. Why are we rushing? No, we can walk at a normal pace. It's not an emergency. Frantic makes your brain go. So 4-6 breathing helps you reduce your reactivity, so you're not as frantic, your brain isn't as reactive and threat primed. Okay, that's why I gave that number 5. Now, of course, as you recover from financial setbacks, sometimes the first thing to do is, oh, thank God, and then go and start spending. Oh, I'm going to buy a new car, I'm going to change my wardrobe, I'm going to buy new clothes, I'm going to... Calm down. Good habits. Develop good financial habits, which I talked about in my How Not to Be Poor video, that people are actually still watching on YouTube, so you can go watch that. It's titled How Not to Be Poor. Good financial habits. So, We all know what those are: tracking spending, budgeting, canceling your subscriptions, etc. Don't buy things all willy-nilly. Sometimes people buy something because they don't feel like going to look for it in their basement. Like, why? Go and look for it. Maintain and develop good financial habits. Maybe you had good financial habits and you went into a financial setback due to no fault of yours. That's fine. We don't shame here. But you can maintain those good habits instead of going, oh, well, it's probably going to all go anyway, I'll just spend it. No, don't spend it all. You can have good financial habits. And last but not the least, postmortem. Look at the situation, how you got into the financial setback, and own your part in it. Even if your part was like 1/10 of 1%. Okay? Own your part in it and say, you know what? This time I'll do something differently. What did I do differently? What I did differently was I embraced multiple streams of income instead of just one. And honestly, that has been better for me. So whether I have clients or not, there's money coming in. I do a whole bunch of things. We can get into that next time. But do a postmortem and see where you went wrong. Sometimes we don't want to do that. We're like, oh, I didn't go wrong. This was just life. But sometimes we did go wrong. Sometimes maybe we overextended ourselves when we thought something was going to happen and it didn't happen. Maybe we did sign and drive because we're so happy. Maybe we were talked into an expensive car purchase we couldn't afford because, the salesman was really good. That's okay. Maybe not okay, but it's okay in the sense that it's okay to look at that and say, okay, you know what? Next time, I'm not going to do that because I have a do-over the rest of my life. So this has gone on longer than I thought it would, but here we are. So I'm just going to run through those things again. I talked about how, I had a financial setback right after the pandemic and how I came out of it. And I did that by getting support, by ridding myself of shame, by just being ready to do whatever it took to get financially back on track at that time, doing my inner work with therapy. I did have therapy, doing breath work. I remember your 4-6 breathing, and in addition, your gratitude practice, maintaining good habits, and doing a postmortem so that you don't have to go through that same thing again. So thank you very much for listening or watching. Please share this video with others, like and subscribe to the channel, leave comments so that others can see, and I will see you next time.